session with possible action related to the subject of the preceding closed session, including possible appointment of the Director of Public Works and Recreation. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Krippe to come back into open session. And any action items to be discussed or made?
I'll make a motion to approve Ryan Metzel for the Director of the Park and Recreation Department.
Tyler Metzel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tyler.
I'll second that.
Les Ryan's here. Can't read my own handwriting, sorry.
We have a motion by Emmerich and second by Kripke to appoint Tyler Menzel as the Director of Parks and Recreation. All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome.
Congratulations, Ryan.
Congratulations.
Tyler.
All right, item number 5 on the agenda is presentations. We have a 2025 Financial Management Plan presentation by Ellers. We have Ariana, you're doing the talking tonight?
Well, if we need Brian, he's here.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, I think we're going to try this. Is there anything I have to hit after we click the button?
Did you click the puck?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Try to click it.
It did before, and then it went. Okay. Download something? Yeah, you can try if you want. There we go. Vertex for it. All right. Green is on, right? Okay. All right. Thank you for having me tonight, everybody. My name is Ariana Schmidt here with Ellers. I'm also here with my colleague, Brian Raymer, who you all know very well, I'm sure, at this point. Tonight, we're going to talk through the final FMP workshop to wrap up the 2024 financial management plan, as well as introduce the 2025 preliminary financing plan. So to start, we're going to recap the various workshops that we held in the fall of 2024, starting with utilities. So on the water side, we walked through the difference between the PSC math, which the water utility is beholden to, as well as the cash basis. Currently, the water utility is roughly 16% behind the revenue requirement that would be expected to maintain operations and support future capital projects. We are currently pursuing a conventional rate case this year to be implemented in 2026. So as that progresses, we will be coming back to you all with the outcome of that as we proceed. And then we also discussed recommendations for implementations of simplified rate increases down the road to help maintain inflationary expenses and also to ensure that the utility is maintaining above the minimum debt coverage requirement, looking at about $1.60 for every dollar of debt service in terms of revenues. And of any additional revenues that come into the picture may also relieve any of those rate increases down the road. On the sewer side, we discussed how the utility is building rates to support the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project, as that project is a significant cost and it's doubling the system's value. We did recommend two 18% rate increases, one in January 1st of 25 and one in January 1st of 26. And Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the 2025 increase has already been implemented. Yes? Okay. So we will recommend as well that 18% increase for 2026. This is all to maintain the debt coverage within the utility that we recommend to allow for room for volatile maintenance expenses as well as to support future capital projects as we discussed. And if there are any questions along the way as we recap, please feel free to stop and interrupt. Next, a high-level recap of how the tax incremental financing districts are performing. TID number 4 has officially closed. So as a reminder, the affordable housing extension was adopted in spring of last year. That allowed the additional increment to be used to support TID 7. And then that final termination resolution was adopted at the end of last year to formally close out the district. TID number 5 is coasting along. Right now, we are anticipating annual payments to pay off outstanding liabilities throughout the max life of the district. TID number 6 as well has outstanding debt that we project will be repaid through the end of the life. We did discuss this at a prior meeting in a closed session, but ultimately that led to the approval of the sewer utility advancing funds to TID 6 to help support the outstanding obligation owed to the developer per the developer agreement of that district. So that has been implemented for 2025's payment, and we'll continue to revisit that developer agreement and incentive payment discussion down the road in the coming months and years. And then TID 7 is a relatively newer district created in 2019. So right now it is being supported by the TID 4 money that we discussed from the Affordable Housing Extension, and we will keep in tabs with TID 7 as it continues to perform moving forward. Next, we're going to talk about the capital improvement plan recap. We have been through many iterations of this capital improvement plan as it is a living document, but it's important to understand the impact of these various projects that the board would like to see executed down the line. So we have mapped out plans for the next 10 years worth of projects. And while we have different financing mechanisms outlined, such as GO debt, revenue debt, special assessments, and then use of cash and grants, we're really focusing on the near-term borrowing, which is the 2025 financing plan that we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. But again, this plan, as you know, is always evolving as market condition changes, actual pricing changes, and inflation comes into the picture. So this is definitely a living document we'll keep updating. Next, we're going to move into the 2025 budget recap on the operating side. So first, we took a look at the history of where the village has been to date. So looking back from budget year 21 through budget year 24, we compared the total levy need to support the various funds and operating day-to-day expenses in comparison to revenue requirement or revenue of the utility. We then compared that to the assessed value TID out to arrive at the tax rate. You'll notice in terms of trends from budget year 21 to 22, that tax rate did plummet. That was a result of a revaluation done in 2021. Again, while that tax rate did drop, you'll notice that the sample property tax bill did increase that year as a result of the increased value. Thereafter, you'll see the trend of the tax rate change year over year, going from 8% in 2022, dropping by about 5% in 23, and then increasing by about 3% in 2024. So that 3% increase in 24 was really a decision as a result of the first financial management plan we went through with you all in 2023. And that decision is what was used to help determine goals and strategies of the board moving forward, as each budget year's decisions obviously affect multiple years down the road, including where the village wants to see those tax rate fluctuations go for the future. So we then utilized that historical performance as well as the budget plans for 2025 to determine where that levy need would arrive for 2025 budget year. The village did go through a revaluation in 2024. So again, we saw that trend that we discussed from 21 to 22, in which the tax rate decreases, although the sample property tax bill increased slightly as a result of that revaluation. So the tax rate went from $6.68 in 2024 to $5.10 in 2025 as a result of the budgetary decisions. Are there any questions on where we landed as a result of the 2025 budget?
Do you mind reminding us, Ariana, what our mill rate has to be as a minimum to qualify for ERP?
Yes, we
I heard
actually have a,
510 and got worried.
yes, we actually have a slide on ERP in a couple slides. So
Okay.
we'll talk through it then if that's
Felt
okay.
that. Thank you.
All right, so then looking at beyond the 2025 budget, this is really where the benefit of the FMP comes into the picture, so you can continue to use those strategic plans to achieve the village's goals year over year, and kind of project out where you're going to be. So this is a financial stress test really at the end of the day. It's not meant to be an accurate prediction. We can't see the future. But what we can do is take a look at the trends, the desires of the village in terms of where they see their expenses and revenues going year over year. We really tried to just increase expenses year over year at an inflationary level, with a few exceptions in which we worked with staff to ensure those goals were achieved. But that's what we used to arrive at the estimated total levy need for budget year 2026 and thereafter. So if you look about 1/3 of the way down, that total levy need for budget year 2026 is about $6.3 million. We then want to compare that to the overall levy need. So if you work your eyes about halfway down the page, that line E adjustment, that dollar amount is the total amount of debt service that is being repaid by the levy. So that's one thing that we discussed, that is a movable object in which the GO debt service payments of the village is actually quite a bit higher than that amount. So you are legally allowed to claim more than just the levied portion there, which can help you meet any gaps within the budget. So while you'll see a deficit in 2026 of about $138,000, that dollar amount compared to the total amount of GO debt capacity you have is a difference of $820,000, which is what you'll see at the very bottom. Your remaining line E adjustment capacity is $820,000. What that means in 2026 is that even though we're showing a deficit, you do have that additional capacity to claim on line E, which will ensure that you do not end up in a deficit. The reason that we show it this way is so you can see if we did nothing and all other things being equal, where you would end up. So this is actually what happened for budget year 2025 as well, and we helped plug that hole to arrive at an allowable meeting your levy need. Are there any questions on how that's arrived at or why we're showing it this way? All right, so those are the kind of things we'll use to make budget decisions moving forward. This is also a conservative way of looking at this, because the way that we have this forecasted out is based on a net new construction of 0.5%. Historically, over the last 4 years, the village has averaged just shy of 2% net new construction. So that's one other thing. As the village continues to develop, additional economic appreciation comes into the picture. This will hopefully get better, but again, this is a stress test to show where things would be at 0.5% net new construction. So what that all means in terms of tax levy rate, this is showing from 2020 through 2028 where your tax rate has been. Again, that tax rate does fluctuate up and down as those revaluations the picture. We do take a look at the assessed value assumptions based on a 10% decrease year over year, and that's based on the average trend of the village. So what we're anticipating here is that when the village reaches a point below 75%, that's when you would proceed that revaluation. So for example, from 2024 through 2025, this is where you see that tax rate decrease of $6.68 to $5.10. And my apologies, but this is actually the slide where you should have a separate handout for, where we made a correction because we did want to incorporate the revaluation. We did want to incorporate the revaluation that we're anticipating to be done in 2027 as a result of approaching that 75% benchmark. So with that revaluation in 2027, you'll see that tax rate is actually anticipated to drop to about $5.31 in 2028 as we anticipate the values to increase. So we'll switch back to the main presentation then. Did I go the wrong way? All right, so this kind of puts into dollars what that tax rate really means in terms of sample property tax bill. So we already talked through the tax rate decreases, property tax value increase, but this just shows all other things being equal. If you were not to levy anything for capital in 2026, this would result in a tax rate of about $5.05. So decrease in tax rate, but as a result, or excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong year. We're looking at 2027 to 2028. So that $5.43 tax rate would decline in 2028 to about $5.31 as a result of the increased property value due to that revaluation. So that's similar to what we saw from 2024 to 2025. But these are the kind of things that we can forecast out to help you make decisions in terms of your line item budget, where you want to spend on capital, and where you want things to go to achieve what you'd like to see in terms of your tax rate fluctuation year over year. We also will talk more about the amount levied for capital as we get into the 25 financing plan, but this is also another movable object where you can kind of determine here if you want to increase that amount that you levy for capital projects and see what that impact is on the tax rate for each year. So that's why we have it level now, so you can see where it is if you levy nothing. But that's not what we would recommend. We want to make sure that you're still contributing something to fund those capital projects. You don't end up in a hole where you have nothing to fund capital projects. So this is where we'll talk a little bit more about expenditure restraint. And Jen, if I don't answer your question as I go, feel free to interrupt. But so for 2026, we're looking at an estimated net new construction of 4.16%. In terms of calculating your expenditure restraint calculation, that is capped at 2% under current law. So even though you are above that, you can only claim that 2% for net new construction consideration. We then add that with your CPI allowance of 3.2 that we're forecasting for 2026 to get to your maximum allowance of 5.2%. If that is higher than what we expect your projected increase to be in terms of expenditures, you continue to qualify for expenditure restraint. So with 2026 and 2027, we are anticipating that the village will still qualify for that. You will see in 2028 that yes turns to no. That doesn't mean it's going to be no. It just means with the way things are shown currently, we have to move some things around to ensure that you're able to meet this. Expenditure restraint is based on budget year to budget year, so we can use that as a strategy to ensure you're budgeting appropriately to ensure your expenditure increase is sufficient to be able to qualify in those future years. But this just gives us that red flag that it's something we need to keep an eye on to make sure that you continue to qualify for that advantage in the future. All right, unless there's any other questions on the FMP recap, we're going to shift gears into the 25 preliminary financing plan. So this was an outcome of the capital improvement planning that we did during the FMP process, really honing in on just those 2025 projects. So as a result of that FMP, we have here broken down the various projects that are planned to be done this year and the various funding sources between GO notes, GO revenue bonds for water and sewer utility projects, and then any projects that are funded via cash or grants that are available to the village. So it's about a total of $3.7 million that we're looking at financing. And we'll get into how that can be structured here on the next slide. So in terms of the general obligation portion, we are anticipating these projects to be repaid both by the levy as well as TID 7, as some of these projects are to support TID 7. So we have this broken down here. We actually had a sale late last week, and that's AA3 that we were able to use for reference to show you where rates are at right now. We did add a buffer of about 60 basis points, just given that this won't sell for a couple of months and we know the market's moving. So with the way that we have this structured and forecasted right now, it'd be about $3.5 million in total principal and interest payments for just the general obligation portion of the capital plan. So what does that mean in terms of tax impact? On the next slide, on the left-hand slide in blue, you'll see the village's existing debt profile as it stands today. If nothing were to change right now on a sample taxpayer's home at a value of $355,000 roughly, in 2025, they're paying about $483 towards debt service payments that are existing of the village. So we kind of use that as a foundation as we propel forward to see what the impact on the taxpayer will be with the incorporation of these new general obligation notes. So with that 2.2 million in projects, you can see on the right-hand side, there are abatements. One, which is TID 7, because as a result of these projects funding TID 7, the TID increment will be able to help offset the amount of levy that's needed to be utilized towards the debt payments. We also do have factored in here as a buffer some capital projects fund. This is what we talked about with the community center last year, that $184,000 that was set aside from the capital projects fund that was able to downsize the amount of debt that needed to be issued to support the project. So this is just an example of what that could look like for future years. This was a part of the 10-year project forecasting, so it's not to say all $500,000 that you're seeing here must go towards the 2025 financing, but that's an option that you can look at and kind of pick and choose how much would you want to leverage from your capital projects fund to downsize the issue, if any. So those are the decisions that we'll talk through as we get into the pre-sale in the coming weeks. So looking at this, if it were to be executed as it is shown today, in 2026, the first year in which debt payments arise, you'll see that levy change from the prior year of about $104,000, meaning that the tax rate goes from about $442 per sample taxpayer to $478 per sample taxpayer. So that means for that average homeowner, they're paying an extra $35 for this debt service that's being issued. So with this example, it shows over the life of the debt of about 20 years that it would result in roughly $500 that sample taxpayer would be paying towards supporting these general obligation notes. And again, these are preliminary numbers based on what you're seeing here, but just a rough outline of what this could look like. Are there any questions on the tax impact? All right. So now that we've shown that initial one, we're going to talk through some options and recommendations. So we did mention there are some water and sewer projects. It was roughly $1.6 million in which we could issue revenue bonds because those are supported by user rates. Because it's a relatively smaller amount and because of a few other things, we'd actually recommend this option of including that $1.6 million into the $2.2 million and issuing all of that debt on a general obligation pledge. So the water and sewer utilities would still repay their portion of the debt, so it wouldn't impact the levy, but it would result in only one issue rather than two. As a result of that, it could result in savings of about $340,000 over the life of the notes because you're issuing once. So that's reduced cost of issuance. That's what that COI means here. So it'd save you about $100,000. You'd only have to bring us in, bond counsel and all the various parties one time instead of two. There's also no debt service requirement with general obligation notes, whereas there is with revenue bonds. So that's about $180,000 of savings. And then revenue bonds typically sell at a higher interest rate than general obligation. So by lumping all into one issue, it can save you about $60,000 depending on where the market goes between now and sale date. Another factor to consider here is your general obligation debt capacity, because obviously it'd be adding about 1.6 million into that market. Right now, in order to stay in compliance with the village's policy of 3% of the equalized value, you're at about 16 million in residual available capacity. So even though it's 1.6 million, it really isn't eating into that capacity too much. So that wouldn't be something that would negatively impact where you sit today if you were to consolidate all into one issue. So on the next slide, I'll show you where that actually puts you. So on the right-hand side, in that orange box, you'll see that roughly $16 million in residual capacity I mentioned. So if you were to incorporate that revenue bond portion into the general obligation, you'd only be down to a little over $14 million in residual capacity. And that's only per your internal policy. So you still have plenty of capacity in terms of statutory, which is what you see to the left in that 5% box in that lighter yellow color. So these are some factors that ultimately led us to that recommendation that you could issue all in one and just do one 2025 GO note this year. One other consideration in terms of funding these projects for 2025 is the sewer utilities cash position. As we've discussed previously, the sewer's cash position is relatively healthy. If you look about halfway down this page to the actual working capital cash balance, in 2025, the sewer utility has about $6 million. We recommend about 5 months of operating expenses as well as 100% of the next year's debt service payments be maintained in that reserve at all times to ensure not only that you're in a healthy position for any volatile maintenance expenses, but also that you're in a good position in terms of where the rating agency sees the utility. So given that you're about $4 million over that target, that does incorporate the 2025 TID 6 transfer that we've already discussed earlier this year. But with that said, you will see it drops off in 26 down to under $3 million. And the sewer utility is undertaking the wastewater treatment plant project, which while we have cost estimates, pricing could change. We don't know the scope. So given that large project the utility is undertaking, this isn't necessarily a recommendation, but more a consideration for the board in terms of funding that sewer portion of the CIP projects. So before we get to wrap up kind of the whole workshop, are there any questions on the financing itself or anything anybody wants to ask? All right. Then in summary of the FMP, just overall, our goal with the outcomes is just to really reiterate that every year's budget impacts multiple years moving forward. So while it's a one-year look, the whole purpose of the FMP is to help you make decisions moving forward year over year and ensure all considerations are being factored in, including achieving the board's goals. We also discussed the importance of allocating levy for capital projects. As we showed, we have $0 in there for now to show at a conservative level where you would be. But in the long run, in order for the village to continue to apply cash to projects and be able to downsize debt needing to be taken out, it's important to still consider that levy for capital projects in the future. And then the last consideration was the ERP qualification. I know this mentions a budget amendment here, but upon discussions with staff earlier today, it's determined that a budget amendment should not be needed in order to qualify with ERP, as we showed you on that prior slide. So please disregard that aspect. We weren't able to print you a new copy between then and now when that was determined. But it's something we still want to consider year over year to ensure that your budget meets that ERP qualifications so that we are benefiting from that additional revenue. And lastly, moving ahead, some next steps overall for the village. The immediate look here is the 2025 CIP financing. After tonight, if you were to agree to proceed, as we have shown you tonight, we'd be looking at a set sale meeting on March 11th where we would return, walk through the pre-sale report, and show you a little bit more of solidified numbers. If you would like us to consolidate the revenue bond portion with the GO portion, we would also show you what that tax impact looks like with incorporating that additional $1.6 million into your GO debt. Thereafter, we would return on April 8th for a sale to discuss the sale award of the GO notes selling that night, and then you'd be receiving funds on or around May 1st. In addition to that, obviously there will be continued conversations throughout the year regarding the TID 6 developer incentive payments that are owed, as we've got a fix for the 2025 payment, but we'll want to have discussions before the end of the year regarding how the village will fund that 2026 payment, given the deficit that TID 6 is in currently. And then we'll continue on with the PSC conventional rate case for the water utility this spring. We'll be working closely with staff on that, and we'll bring that back to you to implement later this year or early into next year. And then before you know it, 2026 budget season will begin. So any questions? I guess the main thing we'd be looking for tonight or soon, Jen, sorry, would mostly just be direction on the debt in terms of if you want to consolidate the revenue bonds with the TO or if you want us to proceed as the two separate.
We would need that to get you resolutions for March 11th otherwise.
So orange decision box
Yes.
envision it. And I was also surprised after Ellers put together these nearly final FMP numbers, because what are we on, nearly final number 4, probably FMP? We're bringing forward a new idea, which is general obligation note, all projects in lieu of the 1.6 in revenue bonds. And that is because, one, we have that capacity. We didn't previously know if we would have the capacity, namely because we saw some extremely elevated bids last year that really shook up some of that capital projects anticipation in terms of project costs. We've seen those project costs, thanks to Brian Kober, also the scope was diminished a little bit for some of those expenses, where we then now have a little bit more capacity. And from a staff perspective, we'd love to save the village $340,000 by not issuing twice for projects that we could fit into one issuance, from both a cost perspective and a time perspective, because bond counsel is very thorough when they're looking at the financials of the village. So I do support Eller's recommendation to go forward with general obligation notes, if the board would be so willing to authorize us to do so.
Thank you. Just a question. So I mean, obviously you see the savings by doing one issue versus two. So rate-wise on GO debt versus revenue bonds, what kind of rate difference are you talking about?
Generally, somewhere between 75 basis points to 100 basis points.
Okay.
I would be concerned with the par amount being only 1.6 million. We'd end up probably getting some pretty skinny maturities on that issue alone. So I would say it's probably going to be actually the high, closer to the 100 basis points or maybe even more. The fact of the matter is there's not a ton of revenue pledges in the state. So we just see a lot of communities do combine this. And then the other thing that I'll point out that wasn't mentioned is, the last time when we did split it, which I think was 2023, those projects were like 3.5 million, right, for the revenue bonds. We're talking a big chunk going towards geodeck capacity if we would have consolidated that, because you were doing several, it was at Highway P or I forget the projects that we were funding. It was a couple of large projects. Given those factors, that's kind of when we saw is the 1.6 is just something to consider.
Makes sense. Do we need a formal motion or just instruct staff to proceed with one or the other?
Unless there are any other competing ideas here, I think we can consider the orange decision box good. On one issuance with general obligation notes, to come back to you all in March with a set sale. Very good.
Anybody have any other input, questions? Everybody in agreement that we should follow their advice and go with the one issuance? Seeing shaking heads, so yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6 on the agenda, we do have 3 public hearings on the agenda tonight. So item 6A is a public hearing for ordinance 25-01 to repeal and recreate section 48-108 of the municipal code relating to the accessory use setbacks and construction requirements. Item 6B is for ordinance 25-02 to rezone parcel V3 048900J002 in the village of Jackson, and to amend the zoning map of the village of Jackson pursuant to section 48.34 of the municipal code. And item 6C is the conditional use request and site plan review for Patriot Fence and Construction LLC at N174W21400 Alcan Drive for Mike and Elizabeth Kotecki. With that, I will open the public hearings. Anybody wishing to speak on any 3 of those items this evening? Anyone looking to speak on those 3 items? Seeing none, I will close the public hearings. Item number 7 on the agenda is any village citizen to comment on an agenda item. Anybody signed in? Okay, thank you. Item number 8 on the agenda is a consent agenda. We do have items 8A through 8F. Anybody looking to pull any of those items out of there for individual consideration? I would like to pull out 8E and 8F, if that's okay with everyone. Otherwise, so I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 8E and 8F that we'll take up separately. Wow. We have a motion by Heckendorf. We'll go with second by Emmerich. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 8E, we do have a resolution tonight honoring Renee Fisher, who will be retiring. So Renee, would you please stand and we'll read the resolution? So Resolution 25-03, Retirement Resolution honoring Renee Fisher. The Village Board of the Village of Jackson, Washington County, Wisconsin does resolve as follows. Whereas Renee Fisher has faithfully served the Village of Jackson for 18 years, demonstrating exceptional dedication, professionalism, and commitment to excellence. And whereas during her tenure, Renee Fisher has made significant contributions to the Jackson community through her program and event planning, as well as her efforts to help to establish the first Jackson Parks and Recreation Department. As Recreation Supervisor for the Jackson Parks and Recreation Department, she has earned the respect and admiration of colleagues, leadership, and the community alike. And whereas Renee Fisher's leadership, vision, and tireless efforts have led an indelible mark on the Village of Jackson and have greatly contributed to its success and growth. And whereas Renee Fisher has always conducted her duties with integrity, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to the mission and values of the Village of Jackson. And whereas Renee Fisher's colleagues and friends will greatly miss her wisdom, humor, camaraderie, and cooking skills, but wish her all the best as she begins this new chapter of her life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Jackson on this 11th day of February 2025 recognizes and honors Renee Fisher for her outstanding service, significant achievements, and invaluable contributions to the Village of Jackson. And be it further resolved that the Village of Jackson expresses its heartfelt gratitude to Renee Fisher and extends its best wishes for a fulfilling and joyful retirement filled with health, happiness, and new adventures. Be it finally resolved that this resolution shall be made part of the official records of the Village of Jackson, and a copy shall be presented to Renee Fisher as an expression of the high esteem in which she is held. With that, I will make a motion to introduce Resolution 25-03.
I'll second.
We have a motion introduced by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Renee, thank you. Speech?
It's been a fantastic, awesome 18 years plus, because she conned me into stuff before that. I'm gonna miss everybody. It's been a great community to work in. And I'm gonna miss it, but it's time to go on to new things. But I got a feeling I will be called back because some individuals have already said you need to come back for Action in Jackson in the beer gardens. And I'm like, give me a year before I come back. But thank you again. It's been awesome. It's been great to work with everybody in the departments and on the board. So I'm gonna miss it. But like I said, we came in together and we're going out together.
Once you get the second retirement check, then you know you're okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Once a month, just remember that, once a month.
That's the scary part.
Yep.
So, but thank you again. This was great.
Congratulations. Thank you. And then on to item 8F, resolution honoring Jeff Deitch. Jeff, if you would stand, please. So I'll read it. Resolution 25-04, retirement resolution honoring Jeff Deitch. The Village Board of the Village of Jackson, Washington County, Wisconsin does resolve as follows. Whereas Jeff Deitch has faithfully and diligently served the Village of Jackson for 36 years, demonstrating exceptional dedication, professionalism, and commitment to the mission and values of the organization. And whereas during his tenure, Jeff Deitch has made significant contributions to the Jackson Sewer and Water Utilities when hired on June 1, 1989 as a wastewater operator and proceeding to the position of utility superintendent, which had positively impacted the organization. And whereas Jeff Deitch has exemplified the highest standards of leadership, integrity, and teamwork, earning the respect of and admiration of colleagues, clients, and the community. And whereas Jeff Deitch has been a mentor, guide, and source of inspiration to those he worked with, leaving a lasting legacy that will continue to influence and inspire future generations within the organization. And whereas as he embarks on a well-deserved retirement, Jeff Deitch looks forward to enjoying more time with family, pursuing personal interests, and embracing new adventures. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Jackson expresses its heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Jeff Deitch for his years of exemplary service and outstanding contributions. And be it further resolved that this resolution serves as a testament to Jeff Deitch's enduring impact on the organization and as an acknowledgement of his remarkable career. And be it finally resolved that we extend our best wishes to Jeff Deitch for a fulfilling and joyful retirement filled with health, happiness, and continued success in all his future endeavors. With that, I will move to introduce Resolution 25-04.
I'll second.
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Jeff, thank you. You have a speech?
Well, being here that long, I went through quite a few administrators, a lot of board members. I've seen the village grow from just a small little village of less than 2,000 to what we are now. It's been my pleasure to see that through. And, I'm going to miss it, but I'm not. You know, it's to the point that it was fun, and you get to that point where it's not fun anymore. So, it's time to go and try to find something else. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, moving on. Item number 9 are items coming from the Budget and Finance Committee. So item 9A is review of sewer and water account number 000712099 with an uncollectible balance in the amount of $450.97. This did come from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to write that balance off.
I'll make a motion to write off the balance of $450.97.
Second.
We have a motion by Matter, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9B is pay request number 10, wastewater treatment plant tertiary filters and disinfection project, J.H. Hassinger, in the amount of $487,350. This once again did come from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve pay request number 10 for the wastewater treatment plant to J.H. Hassinger in the amount of $487,350.
Second.
Motion by Banner, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9C, 2024 wastewater treatment plant project, Clean Water Fund loan request number 8 in the amount of $500,449.45. Once again, coming from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 wastewater treatment plant project Clean Water Loan Fund request number 8 in the amount of $500,449.45.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Kripke. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9D is review of quotes for purchase of a 1-ton truck for the street department in the amount of $75,958. Once again, coming from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the purchase of the one-ton truck for the street department in the amount of $75,958.
A second.
Motion by Engelhardt, second by Matter. Any discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9E, review of quotes for the purchase of the sewer utility service truck in the amount of $118,759. This did come from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval for the purchase of the sewer utility truck in the amount of $118,759.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Kripke. Any discussion or questions on this item?
My personal opinion is that the diesel is the wrong choice for operating in the confines of the village, that a gasoline engine will be less maintenance overall, though it may use more fuel in idling. Idling is the issue with the diesel in the confines of the village. It doesn't get enough highway time for the emission system to work correctly. There's enough power in a gasoline engine to do whatever that truck has to do. We use a gasoline engine in the ambulance, which obviously you know that moves along quite well. The load that it's carrying as far as the crane and the tools is heavy, but that's what the transmission's for in that vehicle. So depending which one you go with, you got a 10-speed transmission, that'll certainly have the reductions to get where you want to go with that truck without being stuck at the stop sign. And it'll last a lot longer than what the diesel would at a lower maintenance cost. So I think we should go back looking for a gas quote myself at this point.
Tim, I'm going to ditto your thoughts, and I did bring that up at, we had some discussion at Board of Public Works, and we did also have a little bit of discussion at Budget and Finance as well. So I am on the exact same page as what you are. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
What's the price difference between the gas and the diesel?
You'd have to go with the Ford instead of the GM because GM in that GVW doesn't offer gas. And you're probably looking at probably $5,000, something like that. It was like $3,000.
And our other vehicles you're all GM. Ford would be an oddball
Ford would be,
in the fleet.
No,
The Ford would be an oddball in the fleet.
Yes, well,
we have the bucket truck that's a Ford.
All right, okay.
we also have the ambulance that's a Ford.
because that's all that we could get at the time because of COVID. So,
Any problem with it?
that is a Ford, no.
So you're saying it's gonna be 3,000 or 5,000 more or less?
Less.
Gas would be less.
And overall maintenance overall will be less.
A potential for, in my mind, potential for breakdowns with emission-related items would be less with the gas than, yeah,
See them all the time though.
yeah. Anybody else? I think we should probably do a roll call vote on this, if that would be okay with you, Jackie?
Trustee Wells,
Aye.
trustee Krupke,
Nay.
president Heckenberg,
Nay.
trustee Matter,
No.
trustee Engelhardt,
Nay.
trustee Emmer.
Nay.
Five to one. And that motion fails. So we just, it goes back for you guys to review it then, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Item number 9F is review of asset management program by USG Water Solutions. Did come from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Wells. Any discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9G, review of bids for Ridgeway Drive and Chestnut Court reconstruction project for 2025. That did come from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve the low bid to advance construction in the amount of $1,636,443.05.
Second.
I guess I'll make that motion then. So motion by Heckendorf, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on that item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9H, review of quotes for emergency generator at wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $236,909, once again coming from Board of Public Works and Budget and Finance with recommendations to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase of the generator for the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $236,909.00.
I second that.
Motion by Engelhardt, second by Matter. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9I is change order number 3, Jackson Community Center expansion project for more construction with an increasing amount of $47,207. This did come from Budget and Finance with a recommendation to approve. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Kripke. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye, or no?
Motion carries. Item number 9J, change order number 4, Jackson Community Center expansion project for more construction with an increase in the amount of $45,146, came from Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of change order number 4, Jackson Community Center expansion project, and increase in the amount of $45,146.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Kripke. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Item number 9K is pay request number 7 for the Community Center expansion project. More construction in the amount of $536,806.05. Once again, did come from Budget and Finance with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of pay request number 7 for the Jackson Community Center expansion project in the amount of $536,806.05.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Kripke. Any discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Item number 10 are items coming from the Plan Commission. Item 10A is ordinance 25-01 to repeal and recreate section 48-108 of the municipal code relating to the accessory use setback and construction requirements. Again, this did come from the Plan Commission with recommendation to approve.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 25-01.
Second.
Motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna do a second reading in RA, so I would make a motion to suspend the rules for the second reading of ordinance 25-01.
I'll second.
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich to suspend the rules. Roll call vote, please.
President Heckendorf,
Aye.
Trustee Emmerich,
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Aye.
Trustee Krupke,
Aye.
Trustee Matter,
Aye.
Trustee Wells,
Aye.
6-0.
Thank
Motion
you. And with that, I would make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 25-01.
Second?
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10B is ordinance 25-02 to rezone parcel V3048900J002 in the Village of Jackson and to amend the zoning map of the Village of Jackson pursuant to section 48-.34 of the municipal code. Did come from Plan Commission with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 25-02.
Second.
Motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Once again, I will make a motion to suspend the rules for the second reading of ordinance 25-02.
Second?
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich to suspend the rules. Roll call vote, please.
President Heckendorf.
Aye.
Trustee Emmerich.
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt. Trustee Krupke.
Aye.
Trustee Matter.
Aye.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
6-0, motion carries.
Thank you. And with that, I would make a motion to approve ordinance 25-02.
Second?
Motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10C, conditional use request and site plan review for Patriot Fence and Construction LLC, North 174 W21400 Elkan Drive for Mike and Elizabeth Kotecki. This did come from Plan Commission with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use request and site plan review for Patriot Fence and Construction LLC at N174 W21400 Elkan Drive.
Second.
Motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10D is review of extraterritorial certified survey map for parcel T9052300B for Jean and Ann Kissinger. This did come from Plan Commission with recommendation to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the extraterritorial survey map for parcel T9052300B Boy for Jean and Ann Kissinger.
Second.
Motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. Any discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10E, review of extraterritorial certified survey map for parcel T9049500B for Robert and Nicolette Kearns. This did come from Plan Commission with recommendation to approve.
Make a motion to approve the extraterritorial certified survey map for parcel T9-049500B for Robert and Nicolette Kearns.
I'll second.
Motion by Engelhardt, second by Emmerich. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
One clarification question. Trustee Emmerich, you made the motion on item 10C for the conditional use request and site plan review for Patriot Fence. I would like to clarify whether the board was amenable to the term as outlined in the memo, that completion of phase 2 and phase 3 of the laydown area shall be subject to DNR approval for wetland development where applicable, as that was a condition of approval recommended by the
Plan Commission, yep.
Yeah, you just need per staff comments or whatever on, you can add that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 11, West Bend School District. Tracy, you have anything?
No new updates.
Oh, thanks. That was a no?
No.
Okay, thanks. Item number 12, Washington County Board Report. We did receive an email last evening from Supervisor Schwab. Some things that they will be talking about at this monthly meeting is Resolution 55 will authorize the issuance of bonds in the amount not to exceed $10 million. The bonds would fund upcoming renovations and roadway improvements that will improve the efficiency of Washington County government buildings. Resolution 56 is a resolution affirming the intent of the Washington County Board to continue funding conservation heritage grants. It sets its 2032 as the year funding for the grants will be reconsidered and triggers board discussion to consider alternate funding for the grants if revenue from agricultural land conversion fees currently funding the grants falls below $40,000 annually. Resolution 57 will affirm the intent of the Washington County Board to continue funding the highly popular and effective Heart and Homestead program. The resolution schedules consideration of the funding in 2028 and sets the threshold for finding alternate funding for the program if the investment income falls below 2.5 million. Resolution 58 allows the Human Services Department to add a grant-funded substance abuse disorder case manager. Hiring this manager directly will be a more efficient use of Washington County taxpayer dollars than filling the same position through an employee-provider contract. And then finally, Resolution 59 authorizes the use of funds to aid in the town of Wayne Bridge and culvert replacement. So that is the main things on the county board agenda this month. Item number 13, Greater Jackson Business Alliance report.
President Debbie Zeinert has just a couple of comments I wanted to make us aware of. They continue to support the community activities. They are a sponsor for the Jackson's Monte Carlo Night. And also they are sponsoring a candidate forum, which will be held in March for the village board candidates that are coming up for re-election and for the candidates who are running for election in next Tuesday's primary. They also want us to be aware their membership has grown quite a bit in 2024, and their March meeting will be centered around learning about some of the new members that have come in over the last year. So,
Thank you. Item number 14, Mid-Moraine Municipal Association report. Jen?
Happy to report as the alternate. Tomorrow night's legislative committee meeting has been canceled due to inclement weather. The topic, however, is hoped to arrive with us at the March 12th meeting, which is held here in the boardroom. The topic will hopefully be the festivals and parade security, which were going to be spoken about from leadership on the Cedarburg Police Department. Any board member is encouraged to still attend. That's next month now. Scott Middlestead and Clerk Jackie Shu will certainly confirm through email in the coming weeks. I believe the next dinner meeting is also at the end of March, hosted by, I want to say, the village of Germantown, but please stand by for some of those details.
Thank you. Item number 15, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming.